All right, thanks for joining us today. So today's session is going to be covering a great topic here that's on the top of most minds in the industry: how technology is transforming the defined contribution space. While workplace retirement plans are the only source of invested assets for the majority of Americans, most plans are still delivered on record-keeping technology built before the internet even existed. This makes efficiency and scale virtually impossible, especially in certain market segments. By transforming the underlying architecture of record keeping, advisors are finally able to pull themselves from the non-value added activities and the ability for them now to focus on more qualitative aspects of plan management. This future state opens up many doors to everything from wellness and managed accounts to the next best dollar allocation, guaranteed income, and more and much more along one ecosystem. This session will explore innovation from the eyes of both technologists and practitioners to bring you practical insight that will be readily applied to your practice. I'm really excited today to be moderating this panel. My name is Tony Fiore. I am the National Sales Director here for PGIM Investments. And joining me is a great panel of industry experts. Alongside here, we have CEO of Pensionmark, Troy Hammond, and CEO and founder of Vestwell, Aaron Schum. Would you both like to introduce yourself, maybe starting with Troy?
Sure, Tony, thank you. As he mentioned, Troy Hammond, CEO of Pensionmark. We started a little over 30 years ago. I always make the joke that I was 5 years old when we started. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Really started as a large advisory firm, and then about 12 years ago, kind of moved into more of a advisor aggregator. We have about 70 locations across the country, about 4,500 institutional plans, 300 advisors and staff, of course, hundreds of thousands of individual clients as well.
That's great. And then I'm Aaron Schum, founder CEO of Vestwell. So a lot of you in the industry hopefully have heard of us, but it's a very focused digital record keeper, right? We're trying to reinvent how this whole industry is approached from a technological aspect, and really trying to solve the non-value add aspects of the business in reshaping how advisors are able to engage with their clients. So super excited to be here, and it should be a pretty fun discussion.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Aaron. Really appreciate you being here and taking the time, and as well as everyone who's both dialed in or viewing this live or will be recorded for this session. So as you can imagine, both Troy and Aaron are fully immersed in this topic of how technology is transforming the defined contribution space. As I mentioned, Troy is a practitioner and Aaron as a tech provider. And we're really excited to dive right in to hear what they have to say. And we'll be sure to leave some time at the end of this panel for questions or any comments that you may have. In order to ask a questions, we ask that you type your question into the browser so that we can get it over to the panel. So let's start with Troy. Troy, we know that ultimately advisors want to be more efficient while providing great service to their clients. And you've been very successful as the CEO of Pensionmark in providing that ability to your advisors and consultants. How are you leveraging technology to accomplish this?
Yeah, so great question, and I think you hit on a quick comment about what we call non-revenue generating activities, and that's a mantra that runs around our office. There's so many things that we do on a daily basis as advisors that are not revenue generating. They're just really kind of knocking the pins down and getting our work done. And I kid around and call myself a recovering computer science major. I was a computer science major in college, so when I came into this industry, I really had a kind of direction towards efficiency and technology. And we've been using technology back when we were just a large advisory firm, really to help us build scale allow us to service more plans with fewer people at a better price point. Fast forward to about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, we realized that we had a tremendous amount of scale, and that was something that we could really centralize and outsource to advisors. And so, when you mentioned those non-revenue generating activities, I kind of had a little PTSD and thought back to the days where we used to actually have a room with about 10 people that would make phone calls to trade participant accounts. So participants would turn in change form. Now, most of you advisors are too young to remember this, but they would turn in change forms to us, and we would actually pick up the phone and call the mutual fund families and make the trades on a quarterly basis. How inefficient is that? How much room for error is that? And you start thinking about fast forwarding to today, and what technology can do for us. And if you think about, how it made us a scalable practice, and then we were able to kind of look at that and say, gosh, this is a model where we can centralize and provide support to advisors. And now, aggregation is the name of the game in our industry, right? It was something 10 years ago people were just starting to talk about, and now, most advisors, if they haven't joined an aggregator, are thinking about it, leveraging the technology, leveraging the centralized support model. And if you think about us providing support from our center, we have a location in Tampa and a location in Santa Barbara, serving 70 locations, serving 300 advisors and staff, 4,500 institutional clients, hundreds of thousands of individuals. How in the world could we do that in the old days of sitting in a room and picking up the phone and moving money around, right? We have to leverage technology for efficiency. And if you think about what advisors rely on us for, right? Advisors are relying on us to provide 321 and 338 support, to do investment reporting, to provide financial wellness to the participants, and answer phone calls for participants, and provide aggregation technology for participants, and financial planning tools, and participant advice, compliance, managed accounts. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Even proposals and RFPs. If you think about all the things that we're centralizing, those non-revenue generating activities, we're taking those off the advisor's plate. Sure, there's an advantage and a scale that you build up with specialization, but there's no way we could do what we do without leveraging technology. And I think it's just the direction we're going to go. And it's just going to we're going to be more reliant on technology as there are fewer advisors in our business, and we're going to have to do more for less. Technology, I think, in the future is even going to be a bigger part of what we do.
Absolutely. I remember when I first started in the industry, participant websites didn't even exist. So where technology is coming from statements and websites, that just so far. So Aaron, I guess this is a great, just to kind of echo Troy's point. I know that Pensionmark, as you heard, is really thinking about technology and record keeping, but most advisors, clearly, record keeping still is a big part of the equation in terms of their value proposition. But as mentioned, technology hasn't really changed for a lot of providers in some of them in decades. So, should advisors and consultants really be thinking about record keeping technology? And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think Troy, said it well, right? It's the non-revenue generating aspect of your business, right? And it's a cost component. And we've approached this industry, maybe we're gluttons for punishment, but we've approached it and looked at how do we dissect and reinvent the underlying architecture? Because as you mentioned, right, a lot of these record keepers, from a tech aspect, they were built pre-internet, right? And they were, you can reskin it and try to pretty it up, but on the back side of it, you're still dealing with a lot of manual aspects that increase the cost to serve, that don't allow advisors to engage at the level they want to, or at a price point that ultimately you can and people expect, and then create the experience out to the participant and the sponsors that they expect. So we look at it and say, listen, where are these pieces that are non-value add, right? Advisors add a ton of value, right? Asset managers add a ton of value, retirement plan consultants, right? All of these things that there are a lot of value created aspects of the business, but the other pieces that happen in between are not really that valuable, right? And think of payroll processing, eligibility calculation, looking at notice generation, dissemination, testing. There's these things that you could say, well, the traditional players have been doing it well, and they do it well with very laborious aspects of it, right? There are a lot of people thrown at it to create efficiencies and optimization around it. But what if you could just do it, we think of things when we see something that is labor intensive, we're like, what can we build to automate this aspect that's non-value add and make it feel fluid, make it real time, bring it closer to the experience that people expect in any other facet of your financial life, right? You go into your bank account and your mobile app or your mortgage or your personal wellness, whatever it is, right? You expect things to happen in a very fluid, seamless, easy way. And so we've taken it upon ourselves to dissect it at that level and try to create a platform that, although advisors should care about record keeping, ultimately people shouldn't care about record keeping. Record keeping shouldn't matter, right? And we try to create a platform that is record keeping, but it's record keeping less, right? And you don't have to have that underlying infrastructure and architecture that really has held back what people should be doing, right? All from the advisor to the sponsor, to the participant, and every other facet that's included in that ecosystem. So ultimately, if you can do that, and we can, that can be delivered, that becomes the new kind of baseline standard for how the industry actually evolves. So our focus is really on that, right? It's not about, we want the Troy and his team to do what they do best, right? We want PGIM to do what you guys do best. We want the advisors to be out there doing what they do best. And how do we bring all that forward in a tech-centric way without creating this operational burden behind the scenes that ultimately someone's going to pay for? And if you can do that, then you create this baseline for everyone to kind of take it to the next level.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of hot topics in the industry right now, and I know many of which are being discussed, looking at the agenda in depth in other Excel 401k sessions this year and in this conference. Let's take a couple seconds to hit just on a few key ones. And one that comes to mind, obviously some big news in the last 2 weeks, is record keeper consolidation. Aaron, I'd love your perspective on what's happening and whether you think that'll continue. I know we've seen some consolidation over the past year or so. So I'd love to get your perspective on if you believe the trend will continue and where you see the puck going. And Troy, I'd love your thoughts as well.
Yeah. So the short answer is yes, it will continue. I think we're seeing it play out right all over the place. Whether Empower, between Personal Capital, Mass Mutual, and some of these other guys out there, or just a census rolling up a bunch of TPAs in Future Plan. There is a lot of that. So when all that's fine, and I get why people are doing it. I think we take a step back and say the aggregation oftentimes comes into play because it's a scale game, right? And it's how do you do that, right? We've taken it, I guess we've looked at it the other way and said, how do you create a profitable, scalable, just pure tech offering at a fraction of the cost and be able to do that in an unconflicted way? Because ultimately we want to make sure we're providing the best service to our partners and the sponsors and participants on the platform without having to be conflicted, without having to go in and say, hey, we need to sell asset management to offset the fee we have to service clients, or we need to, whatever, pick a service or an offering out there, right? And we look at it just if we can make the tech play work incredibly well, that where it's a great business on its own, then we can provide the service back to all of our partners and the folks on the platform that they should ultimately, that they expect in the equation. So I think it'll play out, but I think as an advisor, or someone selling or working with retirement plans, I think it's looking at where is this the best for me and my clients. Or is this person ultimately trying to walk my business out the door? And I think that's a real question people have to ask themselves when they're working. You know, it may look great on the surface, but what's the end game for the player that you're partnering with?
Yeah, that's a good point, Aaron. And I think, you know, you also think about, we're talking about record keeper consolidation, but what about asset manager consolidation and advisor consolidation? And certainly we've seen a lot of asset manager consolidation over the last, call it 15 years, and a lot of advisor consolidation. And these trends are just going to continue for all the reasons we've talked about, I think, over the next 10 years. And so, but it creates a lot of issues, and it's not just the standard, like, hey, we need a tech stack to support this. But if you think about, you know, we got about 2 or 3 advisors retiring for every one coming into our industry. So the reality is, you know, consolidation of advisors means that we have larger advisory firms that have more resources and more capital to build technology to support their clients. But the fact is, if we have less advisors and more clients, then we're going to all have to service more clients. So we're all going to have to adopt this technology. So we could have the best platform in the world if advisors don't adopt it. But advisors really, I think, if you want to be in this industry, you've got to recognize that each advisor is going to have more clients, and to have more clients, you have to be efficient. And the best way to do that is to have a centralized support model behind you with a great technology stack.
Yeah, no, I agree. And just to kind of specifically, I think Anshu asked a question of, you know, what's the market segment we're talking about. So at Vestwell, it's typically small mid market. I would classify that as anywhere from 2 employees. Our largest are, you know, in the, I think 4,000 employees for a plan. But I would say it's typically less than 50 million. But you know, our plans typically normalize out, you know, around let's call it 5 to 10 million range. But to Troy's point, around that is because it's about creating efficiencies. We started with, how do you create a platform that allows advisors to be incredibly efficient, because you have to do more, you have to take on more, but you have to provide more service around it as an advisor, right? So it's all about, you know, how the things are wired up and how you're giving information back to make those better decisions and engage where it feels like a highly customized personal way, but you're using tech to really take it to that level.
Absolutely. One of the big topics and drivers to the consolidation trend is clearly managed accounts. And I know that's on the minds of many both plan consultants and record keepers. So I guess I will start with Troy. Troy, how are you and how is Pensionmark thinking about managed accounts, you know, in terms of their value and how you can implement it from a technology perspective? And then, you know, I'd love to get your perspective also.
Well, you know, this is one that's an interesting topic for me, because 10 years ago, I was a big naysayer on managed accounts. I think, you know, growing up in this business, the initial version of managed accounts was kind of, hey, we're going to get 2 or 3 data points from a participant, charge them 1.5%, basically put them in a target date fund. And I'm oversimplifying it, but I didn't see the value in that. If you think about how technology has changed that, now record keepers have sometimes 8 or 9 data points on an individual before they even communicate with that participant. So when you think about building a customized portfolio with 8 or 9 data points versus 2, and then of course the participants can add additional data points, and then it's what you can do with those data points, right? It's the technology stack that sits behind the managed account platform that can actually really do some amazing things with that data and create true customized, personalized solutions that can actually make a difference. Then you think about like collective trust. So we've partnered with different firms like Morningstar. We've built collective trusts. We've partnered with Vestwell, and being able to be efficient on the technology stack on the background as well. So we've got the front end of participants engaging either on the website or through the phone. Then we've got groups like Morningstar building portfolios, and we're building the actual funds. And if you think about the complexity of all that, you have to have amazing technology to link that all together. But the outcome is what I get super excited about, because like I said, now, even if a participant doesn't engage the system, there might be 8 or 9 data points that are feeding in to create this personalized account. And then we're able to pull these really low cost collectives in. And maybe the all-in cost is 0.5%, where it used to be 1.5%, and you're getting something that is dramatically better. So I think we rolled our managed account program out a little less than a year ago. I think we've already got 600 million of clients signed up for it. So it's really been taking off. We do think it's a big part of the future of our industry, because I think it's finally being done properly, and it all has to do with that technology background.
Yeah, I just quickly, so managed accounts are pretty near and dear to me, because my last life, I co-founded a business called Folio Dynamics, which is owned by Envestnet out in Chicago. And my background has really been on building managed accounts, whether separates or UMAs. And now I love seeing it kind of play out in the DC space, right, and come to life here, because this is where the puck's going, right? And in my opinion, especially as an advisor, I think it's really important to have that and be able to roll right into a managed account in plan to out of a plan. We've partnered with folks on this, Stadion and guys like that are awesome and kind of working in offering managed account solutions around there. We'll be rolling out our own proprietary managed account solution from a technological aspect here soon. So we're in the process of that, where it'll be fully embedded from kind of straight to our native record keeping core, and be able to carry clients over in that aspect. So we're excited about those initiatives that are in play right now. So, but I think it's natural. It's a natural progression. It's the right thing to do, and it creates a lot of value, not only from an engagement aspect, from an advisor consultant capacity, but all the way down to the end participant.
Absolutely. Okay, well, we have a few minutes left. I'm going to try to keep us on schedule. So just as a reminder, if you do have any questions and you're here for the live version of this presentation, feel free to type those questions in. I know we have 1 or 2 which I'm going to ask, but you know what, I'm going to follow with one additional question for our panelists, and then we'll give everyone a couple seconds to ask any questions that are on their mind. I guess we could either, Troy or Aaron, you could start with this. We hear a lot about the term disruptive technology, and we hear a lot of the term, disruptors in the industry. And I think it was Aaron just mentioned data and different things come into making a managed account or creating a, more efficient and better participant outcome. Who should we be keeping our eye on in this industry? Should we be worried about the Amazons or the Googles or the the Facebooks of the world or the Apples of the world as they potentially think about their client base and all the data that they have? So I guess Troy or Aaron.
Yeah, I can start. I think so. I kind of sit on both sides of this. I think we should be worried about everybody, first of all, and everybody's trying to dip their toe in it. The reality is, I remember sitting on a panel about 8 years ago at Plain Advisor when everyone was saying that robo-advisors were going to put us out of business in 2 years, and I fought against that. We're in a face-to-face business. I do believe that technology that the robo-advisor technology brings that helps us be more efficient is great. But there are certain components of our business that require the experience we have, that require the face-to-face. I think the where Amazon, where Google, where these companies are going to fall, I don't know. I can tell you that with fewer advisors and more clients to serve, there's going to be market share for everybody, and I think we need to be worried about everybody. And the best thing we can do as advisors is to be well prepared personally, right? And I think about, we were very fortunate because of our service model. We were well prepared for a COVID world where we have to service clients remotely because we had to service our advisors remotely. So we were very fortunate in that aspect. And if you think about kind of the initial problems we have ahead of us, more employees are going to be working remotely. More clients are going to demand remote service, but they still want some face-to-face. And how are we going to do that? What technology platforms are we going to use? Like I said, we're going to have fewer advisors and more clients. And I think we need to be more focused on those short-term issues. What does our post-COVID world look like? How are we going to service our clients? What are our clients' expectations going to be? Because they're going to be different. But we still need to pay attention to these other players that are absolutely making a run at us.
Yeah. I do think like you always have to keep plowing ahead and looking, to the future and creating that vision around where you want to be. I try not to, get distracted around, worrying about does Amazon come into our space, because ultimately I think it's a different play. It's a different type of market when you're servicing, people from the Amazon marketplace or whatnot. Advisors add a ton of value. I mean, look at the trend. So Fidelity does their annual study, right? And I think in 2008, 68% of plans had an advisor attached. And now, as of 2019, it was 93% of plans had an advisor working with them, right? And so advisors, are obviously important and increasingly important, especially when in turbulent times, right? And it's complex. You can create offerings, and you can see fintech players like a RoboPlay say, hey, here's your one-size-fits-all box, right? Go. And that's fine, and there'll be an attraction to that for a certain profile of businesses and whatnot. But really, as businesses start to grow and they're really reaching that point where it makes sense to augment plan and whatnot, this is where an advisor, I think, just plays a huge role. And it's a complex business, right? And we try to make it easy, and we're trying to help work with the folks on Capitol Hill and changing certain things that just don't make sense anymore in today's world. But ultimately, it comes down to having that relationship and being able to engage and provide that advice when needed, and then go beyond that. I think that the people I would actually keep eyes on more would be the fintech players who are maybe not directly in financial services in a kind of traditional sense, right? If you think of some of the neobanks, right, or the challenger bank type plays, right, or you think of some of the lending companies, right, and the convergence around those aspects when you think of depository businesses. I do think there's tangential plays to go into retirement from there, but still there is a lot, as you guys all know, right, there's a lot of complexity, right, in being able to engage people and how you're designing a plan and then providing investment services and everything around that. It's still going to take people for the foreseeable future to have that, and people just value it, right? You want to pick up a phone, and as much of a tech person I am, I still want to call my advisor and say, hey, what should I do here, right? It's just, especially as you continue to grow in various facets of your life, I think all of you realize how important that is.
Yeah, and Aaron, if I could platform off that, there's a question that came in about how do we react to the kind of advisor mentality that record keepers are competitors versus partners. And I think it kind of ties into this. We have enough competition within our industry, right? And Aaron, hats off to you and Vestwell. I think you guys are really trying to address this issue, but everybody's scraping for margin, right? Every record keeper, every asset manager is struggling for that extra basis point. And so we have a lot of overlapping services. And I think, it's hard, right? And a lot of advisors, you have one or two bad experiences where a record keeper kind of steps on your toes or overlaps your services or cuts you out, and you go, wait a minute, these guys are supposed to be my partners, not my competitors. And so I do think we got to figure some of that out. I mention it as, look, stay in your lane. I wish we could all just stay in our lane, but in fairness to everybody, like I said, everyone's trying to scrape for that margin. Everyone's trying to do more, deliver more for their clients for less. And so I think that's actually a big issue that we all need to kind of figure out is how do we become better partners? How do we have less overlapping services? Those overlapping services, that just means the client's double paying for something. It means that it's confusing to the clients because they don't know who they're supposed to be getting this service from. And the reality is, again, hats off to you, and I think Vestwell's really taking a stand on this, trying to play more of that partner role. But that's something that I think we've got enough competition within our own industry. We've got to figure out before we really focus on everybody else.
Yeah. No. I thank you, and I appreciate that. And there's kind of on top of that question. Plus, I think there's another one there that Tom asked about record keeping with Omni Relias. So I think they're very similar, right? And a lot of record keepers, built on Omni or Relias, right? And they've reskinned it. And transparently, when we started Vestwell, we did that in a bundled capacity, right? Because there were things that we just couldn't build overnight, right? It's a complex world, and we would have ran out of cash, and it would have been good for nobody. So we did it from a very kind of thoughtful way in a prescriptive way, where we said, okay, we're going to go do this. And then we're going to continue to lift out functionality out of Relias, take it in house. And now we've gotten to this point where we've actually collapsed the stack and built our own native record keeping without any legacy record keeper in the fold at all. And it's a completely digital experience, but we had to bundle it first, which could create this aspect of being competitive. But as we've matured over the last several years, the vision has always been completely unbundle this thing. We don't want to do anything but technology, right? I want to hand the keys to someone and say, you drive the car. It's your car, go ahead. And that's really where we are and where we're playing in the space, right? We have actually a number of TPAs now that are bringing us their business, and they're driving the car. So we continue to look at it from that way, and being open architecture and understanding that not everyone needs everything, or they may not have the ability to offer everything. So we want to be able to slot in partners along there and say, here's someone we can drop in to help out with this aspect of your relationship that they may not have or at the moment or expertise around. So that's kind of how we're approaching this space, where we're not our goal. We don't want to compete with anyone, right? But I want to be the engine that powers this industry, right? I'm competing with the Omni and Relias of the world, right? Ultimately, so that's how we view the world, if you will, right now.
Absolutely. Okay. I think you answered two of the questions that came in. Try to just answer the ones that are kind of on the topic. Okay. I know in a very limited time here, so I know from a short answer perspective and a long question, but thoughts on how technology will, one of the questions came in is thoughts on how technology will impact retirement income, turning retirement savings into a paycheck in retirement. So any thoughts on that from a both practice perspective, Troy, or a record keeping, because I know that's a lot of operational. From you, Aaron?
Go ahead.
This is a tough one for me, because it's going to have to be technology driven. Is it going to be a product? Is it going to be more of a planning technology? I don't know, but I've been in this business a very long time, and this retirement income topic is by far the longest running topic that hasn't been solved, right? Every year we have new topics and we discuss them and we figure it out and move on. And this one we haven't figured out a transportable, good product or technology solution for retirement income, and it has to be solved. And I think we're doing a good job with participant advice and managed accounts, but we're still talking about accumulation, and the decumulation issue is a big one, and frankly, I think one of the kind of glaring ones in our face that we have to solve. And there's no question that technology, regardless of how we solve it, is going to play a huge role.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say that we look at we work with a number of asset managers, and we have investors too that are in this space that are looking at kind of the managed outcome and the guaranteed income type structure, and creating that aspect. Easier said than done. I don't think anyone's nailed it yet, but people are getting close. We'll be working with some players on that, and providing that, when it gets a little closer than where it is today. But I think it's a great call. I personally applaud it, and I think it's the right move. It's just, you have to be able to structure it in an efficient way that makes sense for everyone.
It's like we have a panel presentation for the next Excel conference, gentlemen. Well, listen, I know we're up on our time, so I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank everyone for attending our live version, and thank everyone who's going to be listening to this recording over the next few weeks. And the folks at Excel, thank you for having us as part of this panel. And most importantly, a big thank you to Troy Hammond of Pensionmark and Aaron Schum, Vestwell, two tremendous not only partners but innovators in technology in this industry from both a practice management and record keeping and operational perspective. So thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time to be part of this panel. And, if you do have additional questions that come in, please feel free to shoot an email over to us, to Troy, to Aaron, to myself, or anybody at the Excel. We'll be happy to get those answered.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I see a couple more questions. So yeah, feel free to email me, Aaron at Vestwell, easy enough. But thank you guys. This is great.
Thank you. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, guys.